Good evening, dear viewers. Welcome to today's edition of Focal Point, coming to you live and direct from Golfe TV Africa here in the city of Itunu with Hazel Ogoigbe. Now to the news in detail, starting from the news in brief. Several thousands of people, many with their faces covered to conceal their identities, marched through Haiti's capital on Monday, demanding protection from violent gangs who are pillaging neighborhoods in the capital, Port-au-Prince and beyond. Now, protesters responded by setting fire to tires and a state-owned vehicle. Since the assassination, sadly, of the president, Jovenel Moise, in 2021, experts say gangs have seized control of up to 80% of Port-au-Prince, killing, raping, and sowing terror in communities already suffering endemic poverty. Now, from January to March, more than 1,600 people have been reportedly killed, injured, or kidnapped, which is nearly 30% increase compared to the last 3 months of 2022. Now, according to the newest United Nations report, last October, Haiti's Prime Minister and other top-ranking officials requested the urgent deployment of an international to help quell gang violence. In late July, Kenya offered a multinational police force, but the United Nations Security Council has yet to vote on a resolution to authorize a non-United Nations multinational mission. Now, crossing over to the local scene, it's already the summer holidays in Benin. Now, despite this summer holidays, students are taking part in curricular activities and extracurricular activities offered by the school. However, the purchase of school supplies for the coming academic year remains a major concern for parents. More information in the following report.
Preparing for the start of the new school year for your offspring is a strategy that every parent develops, but it also requires experience. For this mother, this important step was achieved by a fairly simple method, she confides, while calling on the government to offer loan facilities to parents. On the other hand, the prevailing economic gloom is forcing this mother to opt for a loan to cover her daughter's school fees. She also wants the state to help families in difficult situations.
On se prépare depuis parce qu'on sait que notre enfant ira à l'école, donc on se prépare, on cotise un peu.
We have been preparing since because we know that our children will be going to school, so we have been saving some money for the preparation of school reopening. As I get some money, I save up a little to get some of the things needed. That is how I have been doing, because I know my daughter will need books and pens, so I pay for that first, and I also pay for the uniforms because that is what she will put on to school. So I save up for that first. Sometimes the savings is not enough. We may also depend on loans if the state can also implement this so that parents can also take loans for their children's education. That will also be good. A teacher by profession, this parent says that he started buying school supplies in May to avoid purchasing the school supplies at a higher rate. It is all about organization, he says. A number of stalls selling supplies have been set up in and around Cotonou. For the time being, some parents are buying as much as they can afford.
Away from that, crossing over to the news in brief, still of course on the African scene. 20 people were killed in Burkina Faso on Sunday in an attack by suspected terrorists in Nahua, near the town of B2, in the Center-East region, bordering Togo, and it was learned on Monday. Another merchant reported 10 wounded evacuated to B2, where traders were returning after going to the market in Tinkase, a trading town on the Togo border. Now, crossing away from that, still very much on the African scene, moving over to Uganda. Now, Uganda recorded a decline in inflation to its lowest rate in the last 15 months, according to the State-run Statistics Agency. The country's headlines inflation declined to 3.9% over the last 12 months, compared to 4.9% in the previous year.
Food inflation for items like cassava, maize flour, rice, bananas and chicken has declined. Uganda's Bureau of Statistics says this has led to a decline in inflation, the lowest since February 2022.
Specifically, we note that the petrol inflation has decelerated to minus 21.1% in the year that is ending July 2023 from that of 14.7% in June 2023. Diesel inflation on an annual basis decelerated to 21.0% in the year that is ending July 2023 from that of minus 16.5% in June, recorded in June 2023.
This is a relief for many market traders like Andrew Bazet. They believe they can now make a better profit margin at reduced costs of transporting their produce from gardens in rural areas to the markets in the city.
The
price of fuel determines the final cost of the products that we sell. It does not matter whether it's food or cement. The cost of fuel controls everything. We ask the government to pay attention to the price of fuel. It's the basis of all the issues.
The government says Uganda is on the path to recovery after the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic supply chain disruptions and recently the global economic shocks from the Russian-Ukraine conflict.
Growth is estimated at 5.3% for the fiscal year ending 22-23, up from 4.6% last financial year. This is shown by the agricultural sector recovery, resilience of the service sector, and considerable household consumption.
The Ministry of Finance also attributes the decline in inflation to the well-coordinated fiscal and monetary policy of the Bank of Uganda. Inflation is now below the central bank target of 5%, down from 10.7% in October last year. The main driver has been food, due to the favorable weather conditions that have helped farmers increase production.
A batch of contaminated common cold syrup manufactured by an Indian company has been flagged by the World Health Organization, the WHO. Now, the latest in a series of warnings by the United Nations Agency about substandard medicines from India. On Monday, the WHO stated that the manufacturers and the marketers have not provided guarantees on the safety and quality of the product. Now, the United Nations Agency said the batch of the syrup branded Cold Out and found in Iraq was manufactured by Foods India Laboratories for Dabli Pharma. Now, it had higher than acceptable limits of contaminants, the ethylene and ethylene glycol, and these are chemicals that can be fatal and lead to acute kidney failure in dozens of children. Now, the batch had 0.25% of the ethylene glycol and 2.1% of ethylene glycol, when the acceptable safety limit for both is up to 0.10%. Now, the WHO stated in its medical product alert, and the alert about Cold Out is the latest warning issued in recent months about contaminated cough syrups sold worldwide. Now, 4 types of medicines made in India caused the death of at least 70 children in Gambia last year, according to the country's Presidential Commission of Inquiry. According to the WHO, the syrups contain unacceptable quantities of the ethylene glycol and ethylene glycol, commonly used as antifreeze, in October 2022. Now, crossing away from India, moving over to Niger, Niger's mutinous soldiers closed the country's airspace and accused foreign powers of preparing an attack as the junta defied the deadline to restore the ousted president, Bazoum. Now, Niger State Television announced the move on Sunday night, hours before West African Regional Bloc had demanded that the coup leaders reinstate President Mohamed Bazoum or face military force. Now, the whole world is expecting to see the outcome of ECOWAS meeting scheduled to hold on Thursday.
Niger's mutinous soldiers closed the country's airspace and accused foreign powers of preparing an attack as the transitional government defied the deadline to restore the ousted president. Niger State Television announced the move on Sunday night, hours before West African Regional Bloc ECOWAS had demanded that the coup leaders reinstate President Mohamed Bazoum, the democratically elected president, or face military force. In his televised address, coup spokesperson Colonel Major Madu Abdrahman said the National Council for the Safeguard of the Country is launching a vibrant appeal to its youth, the noble sons and daughters of our country, that they be ready to defend our country.
Concordant information currently in his possession indicates that the forces of a foreign power are ready to attack Niger and its people in coordination with ECOWAS and armed terrorist groups. The National Council for the Safeguard of the country warns ECOWAS and the foreign power against all interference in the internal affairs. The National Council for the Safeguard of the country is launching a vibrant appeal to its youth, the noble sons and daughters of our country, that they be ready to defend our country. Long live the National Council for the Safeguard of the country. Long live the people of Niger, noble and sovereign. Long live an independent Niger. I thank you.
The July 26 coup in which Mauritania soldiers installed General Abdulrahman Chiani as head of state adds another layer of complexity to West Africa's Sahel region that's struggling with military takeovers, spreading Islamic extremism, and a shift by some states toward Russia and its proxy, the Wagner mercenary group. An ECOWAS delegation was unable to meet with Chiani, who analysts have asserted led the coup to avoid being fired. Now, the transitional government has reached out to Wagner for assistance while severing security ties with former colonizer France. Algeria and Chad, non-ECOWAS neighbors with strong militaries in the region, have said they oppose the use of force or won't intervene militarily, and neighboring Mali and Burkina Faso, both run by transitional government, have said an intervention would be a declaration of war against them too. The military government in Mali and Burkina Faso called ECOWAS bluff, saying an armed intervention in Niger would be met with force. Guinea also sided with the coup leaders. All three countries plus Niger are suspended from ECOWAS and form part of a military-led belt spanning Africa's Sahel from Guinea in the west to Sudan in the east. It was not immediately clear on Sunday what ECOWAS will do next. All eyes are on the next move by West African leaders who vowed to attack coup leaders in Niger if they fail to free the detained president and revert back to a democratically elected government. The deadline for the threat of force involving troops from the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, was on Sunday. The world waits in anticipation to see the next move to be made by ECOWAS. In the semi-arid Sahel that separates coastal Africa and the Sahara, armed groups are swarming like ants in sugar, pulled by a mixture of weak states, bleak economic prospects, burgeoning populations, and a punishing climate. Conflict trackers say Africa, the Sahel in particular, has experienced quadrupled levels of violence in the past decade, and the past year has seen fatalities peak. Almost 10,000 deaths from attacks have been recorded, mostly in Mali and Burkina Faso, according to data from the African Center for Strategic Studies.
Crossing over to the news in brief, President Bola Tinubu is currently in a meeting with the Director General of the World Trade Organization, Professor Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, at the Presidential Villa, Abuja. Professor Okonjo-Iweala arrived at the Presidential Villa at about 2:50 p.m. She was accompanied by a former Minister of State for Health under former President Goodluck Jonathan's administration. Moving over to Senegal. Now, the story reads, talking about Senegal, and the story says Senegalese opposition leader Ousmane Sonko has been on hunger strike since he was arrested after a 2-year standoff with the government. Aides and one of his lawyers said he was admitted to a hospital emergency on Sunday in Dakar. A past staff Mr. Sonko's party, which was dissolved by the authorities on Monday, announced his admission to emergency in a statement.
Senegal's jailed opposition leader Ousmane Sonko, who has been on a hunger strike for the past 8 days to protest charges against him, has been hospitalized, his party said on Sunday. Ousmane Sonko is a Senegalese politician, member of the National Assembly from 2017 to 2022, and mayor of the city of Ziguinchor since 2022. He's the president of the Senegalese African Patriots for Work, Ethics and Fraternity Party, PASTEF. He was a candidate in the 2019 presidential election under the banner of the Sonko president coalition and came third in that election with 15% of the vote behind Idrissa Seck and incumbent President Macky Sall. PASTEF, Mr. Sonko's party, was dissolved by the authorities. In a statement, the Patriots of Senegal for Work, Ethics and Fraternity Party, PASTEF, said Sonko has been admitted to the emergency room at a hospital in the capital, Dakar, noting that prior to his imprisonment, he was in good health and had no known illnesses. The party said President Macky Sall and his government will be fully responsible for everything that happens to him. The authorities have not commented on the matter. Mr. Sonko, 49, went on hunger strike on July 30, 2 days after his arrest. Local media reports indicated that Sonko was refusing food in prison, where he was detained last month in protest against his detention over multiple charges that include calling for an insurrection and conspiracy against the state. Sonko, a presidential hopeful whose political party was dissolved by the government, was detained at the end of last month at Sebikotan prison just outside Dakar. Sonko was arrested on July 28 and a court in Dakar ordered his detention on July 31. He reportedly began a hunger strike on July 30. Sonko announced his hunger strike in a Facebook message before being detained. In the face of so much hatred, lies, oppression, persecution, I decided to resist. I observed from this day, July 30, a hunger strike, he wrote, also calling on all political detainees to do the same. Sonko was in June sentenced to 2 years in prison for corrupting youth, which undermines his chances of running for president. Some Senegalese are of the opinion that the government of Macky Sall is doing everything possible to disqualify Ousmane Sonko from contesting for the upcoming elections in Senegal. On July 4th, 2023, millions across Senegal let out a sigh of relief when President Macky Sall announced in a nationwide address he would not run for a third term. A 2016 constitutional referendum barred presidents from serving more than 2 5-year terms, but Sall, elected 4 years earlier, had long maintained that he was eligible to stand for another mandate. The new law, he argued, effectively resets the clock on his term limits. Despite Senegal posting solid economic growth in recent years, analysts and voters stated that the lack of jobs for the country's burgeoning youth population will remain a top and difficult priority for the next administration.
The head of Tunisia's largest trade union has demanded Western nations do more to support migrants who are continuing to arrive in Libya after Tunisian authorities began a massive expulsion in early July. More information in the following report.
Head of Tunisia's largest trade union has demanded Western nations do more to support migrants who are continuing to arrive in Libya after Tunisian authorities began a mass expulsion in early July. Chief of the Tunisian General Labour Union, UGTT, Noureddin Taboubi, was speaking at a political rally in Sfax.
The West must understand that we are not its border guards, he says. They colonized Africa and other countries for many years. It's about time to implement real development so people can live in dignity and prosperity in their countries.
Around 250 UGTT members had gathered in Sfax to commemorate the death of activists in 1947 during the French protectorate in Tunisia. Taboubi also questioned whether Tunisia's new Prime Minister Hamed Achani, appointed by President Kais Saied on 1st of August, would have any real power and said the country should better reflect its society's many elements.
The point is not in changing faces, but in changing policies and strategies, he says. Does the new Prime Minister have the power to take decisions? Will he be open to the components of the society to overcome the difficulties and challenges in our country?
Kais Saied, who was democratically elected in October 2019, seized all powers on July 25, 2021, and has governed since then by presidential decree. He can dismiss his head of government or ministers at any time. Tunisia currently faces shortages and is running out of cash after being strangled by a debt of 80% of GDP and a policy of the state buying basic products before putting them back on the market at subsidized prices.
Nigeria's unreliable power grid is not only slowing down the country's economic growth, but health workers are also saying it can lead to unwanted hospitalized shutdowns at night. But a startup called Volsus Energy is giving hospitals new hope. More information in the following report.
For most rural dwellers in Nigeria, hospitals or health centers closing at dusk has become a norm because of an unreliable or weak electricity supply. In areas where hospitals must operate at night without electricity, health workers attend to their patients using flashlights or lanterns. This used to be the situation at the primary health care center in Karu, an urban area outside the capital, Abuja. Staff nurse Rose Bawatonga explains.
Honestly, we are not finding things easy. It was really a bad situation for people working, especially at night duty. Like in terms of conducting delivery, the nurses don't even agree to do night duty here because there was no light and they are so scared.
Tonga said storing medicines like vaccines has been an issue. And it is not just health workers that are impacted by lack of electricity, but also patients in need.
Even the women, the pregnant women, they don't even like coming. So sometimes the nurses will be at home. Once they reach here, they will now place a call. Somebody is on label.
But things have changed at the Karu Health Center. The hospital now has a 24-hour uninterrupted power supply because of Volsus Energy, a solar power startup. Tonga says it is a big change.
You can check around, you will see there's light everywhere and everything is visible. Our vaccines are intact. They are always ready for use and the women are very happy.
Engineer Tomiwa Bayo-Ojo is the Chief Executive Officer of Volsus Energy. Founded in 2016, his startup has so far provided solar power to one facility. But Bayo-Ojo says solar power is the right approach for sustainable electricity to healthcare facilities across Nigeria.
The power that they require on a daily basis is relatively small. They don't have heavy equipment, so to say. You get what I'm saying? They don't have equipment that require everything that they have. There's just a few kilowatts, and I feel this can be solved by mini grids, which is a solution that we provide.
Volsus Energy is just one of many solar initiatives popping up across Nigeria. According to numbers published by Statista, solar energy capacity in the country amounted to 37 megawatts in 2022, a 12% jump from the year before.
Dear viewers, with this I conclude today's news edition, coming to you live and direct from Golfe TV Africa with Hazel Ogoigbe. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your evening.